Welcome to toy-polloi. Parental guidance. This video contains scenes of Lego destruction.
Hello and welcome to another video from toy-polloi, and in today's video we are going to be restoring this vintage multi-toys Corp Blue Thunder helicopter. Now this is a toy that I've wanted in my collection for a very long time, and I now finally have one, but it's in a little bit of a sorry state, so we've got a lot of work to do to get it looking as good as new. We're going to take this broken toy here and try and fix it up so that it looks really nice and is ready for display. And as you can see, I even have a box in the background, and we may, if there's time, get on to repairing that box as well. But the main thing I want to cover on this video is getting the helicopter back up and running. So let's take a closer look at it and see what needs fixing. And so here it is. Here is Blue Thunder, and as I say, it's in a pretty sorry state. But I have to say, whenever you see these toys, that there are always bits broken on them, and I think this one covers most of the very common issues of broken areas, and that's what we are going to be fixing today. The main body of the helicopter actually doesn't look too bad at all. We can sort out the propellers and rotate them out. I've just got them rotated in just so I don't keep hitting the camera with them. But the main issue you often see with this is that the rear tail fins are snapped off. There should be some vertical sort of fins here on either side. Those are always snapped off. If we go to the front of the vehicle, you can see that the gun is very loose and floppy. This should stay sort of upright and be able to be moved around. But this one, as you can see, basically doesn't want to stay anywhere. It's just gone very floppy. We've got a slight bit of damage here to the hinge mechanism where the cockpit sort of hinges on. It's also missing all of its stickers, so we need to sort that out. Otherwise, I can't see any other sort of major issues with it, but there's enough there to keep me occupied. Then we come to the cockpit cover. This needs a good clean. It is broken as well at the front. This bit here is snapped off. That is actually where it clips down, so it's a very common area to break, so we need to repair that and replace that. There should be two little prongs sticking out of these areas here. I'm not quite sure whether I will replace those. Even on the original toy they look like something that would break off instantly, and I think if I replace them they will still break off very easily. I will certainly have a think about that as we go, but the main thing on this one is to repair that. And then of course it is missing all of its stickers, so we need to sort that out. So as I say, there's a fair amount of things to do. The first thing I want to do though is actually give everything a good wash. It is quite filthy. There's lots of dirt and grime in this, so I'm going to have to take a few little bits apart. I think on this we just need to undo that screw and we can take that glass out, then I can give the cockpit a good wash. On the main body, I've been looking at this and wondering whether I should take it apart because it is held together with screws, but then in studying it closely I noticed that there's one bit at the front which is actually glued on, which is this little sort of sensor thing on the front, and that is glued across the join. So if I take all the screws out, most of it will come apart from this front section here. And I don't want to take that off and sort of risk breaking it, so I'm just going to wash this using some hot soapy water and a toothbrush. I'm not going to submerge it because there are a few screws in it, but I think we can get that looking pretty clean. The only issue again with not taking it apart is going to be how we fix this, because I was hoping we would be able to take that out easily, but I still think we can fix that without actually taking it off. So first things to do, let's give this a good clean. As I say, I'm going to fill my sink up with hot soapy water and use a toothbrush to gently go over everything, get all the dirt and grime out of the nooks and crannies. And just before I take that downstairs, I'm going to undo the screw on this just to take the cockpit glass out so that we can clean all of that as well in one go. So let's get cleaning. So after a good clean, you can see it's really looking pretty nice now. It was just sort of very dusty and dirty, so a hot soapy water and a toothbrush has really brought this out, and it's actually got quite a nice shine to it. We are now going to start on the main part of the project, which is sort of fixing things, but I want to ease myself into that because I want to test this plastic and see what it's like to work with. It looks to me like it could suffer with a bit of sort of gold plastic syndrome, hence the sort of brittle bits here. Gold plastic syndrome tends to affect the plastics that have got sort of gold flecks and swirls in them, and this looks a little bit like it has. So the first fix we are going to do is to fix this hinge here where the cockpit section joins on. One side has got a little pip in place, the other side is broken off, and we're going to use some Lego to fix that. So let's get that repaired first, and that will give me a chance to test the plastic and see how well it drills and how we can sort of glue it as well.
Try again.
As you can see here, this is what is missing. This is the little pip that is on one side that holds onto the cockpit. On this side, it has snapped off, so we need to replace that. And the first thought immediately for me is to go to my box of Lego and pick out a Lego antenna or aerial. I'll put the number of this piece at the bottom of the screen, and we are going to fix a small portion of that into a hole on this side. I'm going to drill a hole in just using my pin vise. I've got a slightly smaller drill bit in this. This is only a 2mm diameter drill bit, so I'll drill a pilot hole in there, and then once I'm happy with that, I will drill a 3mm hole in, because that is the thickness of these Lego pieces. We can then cut a small piece of it off and glue it in place and see how well that works. And as I say, that will give me a chance to sort of test this plastic out and see what it's like to work with and what sort of glues work on it. So let's get this hole drilled, and we'll cut a piece of Lego and insert it in there. We can then test to see if the cockpit actually works. That all seemed to go pretty easily. The plastic's fairly easy to work with. It does feel quite soft, so I am going to be very careful with this, but you can see there is now a little piece of Lego inserted in. It looks pretty much like the original. I was thinking maybe I need to paint that, but actually because I've used a black aerial, you can hardly see it. So let's test it with the cockpit cover. So that should clip on one side, then we just gently have to push it over that piece of Lego, and that fits in place. And yeah, that is now working, and you can lift that up. Yeah, that's good. I'm really happy with how that's working. And as I say, I've now learnt a little bit about the plastic. So I think the next thing I want to do is actually fix this loose gun, because it's pretty annoying that it keeps sort of flopping around, and it means that every time I put the helicopter down, it sort of ends up sticking on the gun. So let's fix that next. I've got a rough idea of how I'm going to do it, but we'll see if it actually works. Now, I've fixed loose joints and loose limbs on all sorts of figures and vehicles over the years, and I'm going to be fixing this in much the same way. You can see in there just about there is the remains of a white grommet. This is a rubber grommet that seems to have sort of perished a bit. There's one on the other side as well, and those would have added a bit of friction to this that meant it would stay in place as you sort of moved it and twisted it around. As that has perished, it's got very loose, and it's now really floppy and won't stand in any sort of position that you put it. So what we need to do is replace that, and normally I would just wrap some PTFE tape or something like that around it. This one's just a little bit more awkward because it's hidden inside there, and it's not even lined up with the sort of a joint that we've got there. It's off to one side. So what I'm going to do is actually use some shearing elastic. So this is black shearing elastic, and then a piece of beading wire to thread that through and thread it around a couple of times. And I'm going to position it using my tweezers to get it into where that old grommet is, and get it all wrapped in and then tied up, and that should give it some extra friction. It's just a little bit more awkward than normal. Normally it's very easy to get into joints. This one is just yeah, as it's tucked back there. We can still do it, it's just going to take a little bit more effort. So yeah, a bit of beading wire, some shearing elastic, and some patience with tweezers, and I think we'll do it. So let's get on with that and see if I can actually get that in place, and we'll get this gun so that it stays in position again. So I've wrapped that round 3 times, and now what I'm going to do is tie a knot in it, or a couple of knots, and get it sort of fairly taut inside, because you want it sort of reasonably tight so that it actually pulls into the joint. So I'm just going to do a couple of knots there just so that it's not going to come undone, like so. So now if you can just about see now, I've got the elastic tied around the axle. I'm going to cut these off short, just like that. And then get my tweezers, and I will try and position this into the place that I want it, which is where the old grommet was. and see if I can push it in and get it to start causing some friction. It's going to be a little bit awkward, but I think we can do it. Oh yeah, you can see it's starting to work. The gun is actually now staying in position, so it is working. I've just got to do a little bit more pushing with these tweezers to get it in. I think that'll do. I've just done a little bit more tweaking off camera, and this is now working really nicely. So you can see this gun actually stays wherever you put it. It's working just as I was hoping it would. It's a little bit awkward to do, as I say, because you're basically taking this beading elastic, wrapping it around the axle a few times, just using the beading wire to get it through the gap, because it's a bit of an awkward gap, tying it that off and tying it so it's fairly tight, so it grips to the axle. And then I've used a pair of tweezers to push that along. So where you could see that white grommet at the end, you can only just about see it now, because the shearing elastic is sort of taking the place of it, and that is giving enough friction to hold this gun in place. So yeah, it's a bit more awkward than fixing a normal sort of loose weapon or a loose limb on a figure, but it can be done, and that is now working. So we can get on with fixing some of the bigger issues on this, like the tail fins. For the tail fins, my plan is to make something out of some 2mm thick styrene sheet and then paint it a sort of metallic blue colour. But before I do that, I actually need to know how big the originals are. So I do need to say a massive thanks to Kevin over at Zarnister Studios, who very kindly took a photo of his Blue Thunder with a ruler next to the tail fin. So from that, I can take those into Photoshop and I will make a pattern. So let's do that and see what size these things actually need to be. And here you go, here is the pattern that I made. I've just printed this out onto some normal paper, and if we hold it up against Blue Thunder, you can see that's how big these little tail fins are going to be, and we just need to get cutting. So I'm going to stick these onto some 2mm thick styrene sheet, just with a bit of Pritt stick. We'll let that dry, and then I can cut around them with a knife, and we'll start shaping and sort of fine-tuning, because if you look at the original fins, they've got some really nice sort of rounded edges, so we'll have to put rounded edges on this, and yeah, just generally make them look as close to this sort of styling as we can. So let's get sticking and cutting. here are the finished pieces. You can see they're not looking too bad at all. I've used my ruler just to sort of scrape along the edges and add a little bit of a curve to it, and then sort of sanded and filed that down a bit more so they've got a little bit of a round edge like the original pieces had. And then I've at the end rubbed over it with 1000 grit sandpaper just to make it a little bit scratched, because obviously we're going to have to paint these at some point, and it's easier to do that before we glue them in place. So those are now ready. If I hold one up to the rear of Blue Thunder, you can see that's going to fit pretty well. We've now got to attach them, and to do that we are going to be using plastic weld. The plastic that the Blue Thunder helicopter is made of is going to work perfectly with this, and obviously styrene sheet works great with the plastic weld, so we're going to use that to join the two together. Plastic weld is not a glue, it actually sort of melts the plastic and fuses it back together, but it only works with certain types of plastic, so you learn sort of as you go which ones will work with it, and I know this Blue Thunder is that sort of plastic. So let's get these put in place and we'll see what it looks like. So there we go, those have now had time to set. The plastic weld is all set and they are firmly held in place, and I'm very pleased with how they look. They really do look like the originals. I think by the time we've painted those up you will hardly notice that they have been repaired, and the plastic weld has really firmly held them on, so they are like really tough actually. I think you would be hard pushed to break those off. So yeah, I'm very happy with how those have turned out. We've now got to do fairly similar to the front here on this cockpit. You can see we've got a piece missing here where it actually latches in place. I'm just going to freeform this. I'm not going to make a pattern because it's just a little piece that needs making. So I've got a few offcuts of black styrene and I'm going to get shaping until I've got something that matches, and then again we will plastic weld that in place. There's a little bit of detail to add because you can see there'll be one rivet that should be on top of that, so that's just a little bit of detail, but otherwise it's same process, just cutting and shaping some styrene until I can get it to fit that. Then I will plastic weld it in place, and then once that's all done we can sort out painting all of those pieces the right sort of metallic blue. So let's get on making this missing part. And there we go, there is my repair. In the end I did actually have to use a little bit of super glue on it. The plastic just wasn't forming a strong bond between this blue plastic and the new bit of styrene. So I think this plastic is slightly different to the one that's used on the main body of the ship there. But you can see I've got something that actually doesn't look too bad at all. I cut some very thin strips of styrene and just stuck those on to make the rivets. I think they work, yeah, pretty reasonably. It's not a perfect match, but certainly by the time this is painted you won't notice it. And most of it does actually get hidden by this little clip here. So now we need to paint these new pieces and the tail fins, and to do that I've been out in my garage and I found this spray paint which I actually used to paint Optimus Prime's feet, and this is called Toyota Dark Blue, and it's a nice sort of metallic finish. I've just done a little test of it on a piece of spare black styrene and you can see this is the finish. So it is slightly sparkly and blue. It's not a perfect match, in fact if anything it's a little bit dark, but I think we can sort of blend it in. Now the only problem I have is that this spray can is very old, it's gone a bit rusty and it doesn't actually spray very well. I've tried changing the nozzle, that doesn't help. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to paint this on with a brush. So I've just sprayed some of this into a pot here and I'm going to apply it with a brush. Now this is a fairly wide sort of tipped brush, so I shouldn't get too many brush strokes. It's not the ideal way of doing it, but this is all I have and I don't want to go out and buy another can of this just to spray some very tiny pieces. So let's give this a go and see what the results look like. So that's all the paint done. I'm actually pretty happy with it. The colour match is not too bad. It's a little bit glossy at the moment, but that will wear down in time. But you can see that match is fairly close. And then we come to the tail fins, and again, those don't look bad at all. I wish I had been able to actually spray this on, but that can of paint was just too far gone. And painting it on with the brush is okay. You've got a few little brush marks in there. And by the time I've stuck some stickers on that, I don't think you'll notice, but it's not perfect, but it's going to do the job. So yeah, I'm happy enough with that. I think a spray can would have worked a lot better, but I didn't want to go out and just buy a can of spray paint just for a tiny little piece like that when I've already got some. It's just a shame it wasn't still working. Now we come on to the stickers, and there's an awful lot of stickers to stick on this. If you need these for your own toy, then head to toy-polloi.com where there is a sticker sheet available, and that PDF file was very kindly sent in by Kevin from Zarnister Studios because he'd been working on one for his own collection and said did I want to host the PDF file that he'd made. So it's not stickers that I've made, it's one that Kevin did, so a massive thank you to him. I've just printed that out onto some glossy sticky backed printer paper. There is no real guide as to where these stickers go. I've not been able to find any sort of instruction sheet for this, so I'm just using photos that I've found online of other people's version of this toy, and also the prop that was used in the movies and the TV series, and I'm going to be placing them where I feel they sort of work best, which as a child is pretty much what I would have done. There is one key sticker which obviously says Blue Thunder on it. I think that one goes there, but otherwise all the others I'm just going to sort of freeform it and see what happens. And here we go, here is the finished Blue Thunder, and with a lot of toys it's the stickers that make it. Just adding in all those little bits of detail really brings this toy to life, and I've ended up with a really nice looking thing to display. It's taken quite a lot of work, as you've seen, because we've had to repair a few areas and work out some new fixes, but the end result has certainly been worth it, and I'm really pleased with how this has turned out. There's still one area that I probably could fix, which is these two little prongs on the front of the cockpit, but for the moment I'm going to leave those because they are so fine and so sort of hard to see anyway. I don't think anyone's going to notice those are missing. The key points were things like the tail fins. Without those it really did look odd. Obviously the floppy gun at the front and the broken cockpit, and then of course the final thing is the stickers, and bringing all of that together turns it into a really lovely piece. I need to say a massive thank you to Sean, who very kindly donated sort of the bare bones of this Blue Thunder, and then a thank you as well to Kevin and John, who sorted out the cockpit, and Kevin, who helped me with the stickers. So thanks to those guys for helping out on this project. And if you have a Blue Thunder yourself that is missing stickers, then check out toy-polloi.com, because I have that sticker file there that you can download and print out. And if you have the broken tail fins, I'm also going to put the pattern that I created for those on toy-polloi.com, so you can download that, print it out, and have a go at making your own. They're not too hard to do, and once you get a paint that's a fairly close match, you can see you end up with something that looks really pretty good. If you remember back to the beginning of this video, you will see that I had a box as well for this toy. I'm going to restore that separately because this has already taken quite a long time to do, and the box is a whole project on its own, so I will do that another day. But for now I am very happy with how this looks, and this is going to go on display here at toy-polloi. If you've enjoyed this video, then make sure to hit the subscribe button and tap the bell to be notified each time I upload a new video. And if you've really enjoyed it, then why not think about becoming a Patreon or YouTube channel member. You get early access to all my restoration videos, and you get access to an exclusive series of videos called On the Cutting Mat, which I upload every month. So have a think about that, and thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching Toy-Polloi. Subscribe for more great videos.